What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Inside the YouTube Studio. Today is a very, very special day. Not only is he a friend of the channel, but he is a member of the community. If I do say his name, it just evokes all of these wonderful things about the comic community. He makes some of the best content out there, most intelligent, mindful content as well, and he definitely he makes it with swagger. So with that being said, let's bring on Swagglehaus Comics.
Hey
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on the channel. I appreciate the kind words for the setup, the intro. I feel appreciated, which is great.
Well, you're definitely appreciating the community for sure.
Thank you.
But you know that.
Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to make some videos here and there and connect with people and enjoy comic books, and it's a lot of fun. And
I know, right?
Getting to do conversations like this is always a kind of, I view it as like the perks of
oh, really?
In a way, yeah. Doing like the YouTube show, I was like, cool. Like now I have all these great friends that I can talk comic books about. Which prior to YouTube, there was none of that in my life. I mean, I think people have talked about that before, right? Where it's like you don't really have too often where you have your comic book friends that are in your actual life bubble.
Exactly. Again, I've said this before. I talk to people in the community more often than I talk to like my closer friends.
Right.
They understand. They get it.
Yeah.
Which is nice of them. So.
Yeah.
How's your day going?
It's good so far. It's a little bit of a busy day. We're balancing real life work stuff with the YouTube stuff. But the YouTube stuff's always fun to do. But it can't complain. It's been a good day.
It takes some time, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, as well. I mean, you have a lot of stuff going on. I know.
Yeah.
And so it's like just balancing.
Yeah.
The content and real life stuff is a tricky thing to do.
Exactly. I've just trying to relax a little bit with it and just make stuff that feels right, and when I can. Everybody understands that life kind of gets in the way. So when you do make something, it just is. But I know you have like specific things that you do on the channel, which is kind of the first thing that we do here on Inside of the YouTube Studio. We kind of get a picture of where your channel's at in terms of like the content you make and anything else that is sort of consistent or that you're doing currently. So it's a perfect kind of segue into it. So if you want to tell everybody what the lay of the land of Swagglehaus Comics is.
Sure, yeah. So the YouTube channel is called Swagglehaus Comics and Games. I do a lot of videos just about comic book collecting. In a way, I think of it as sort of a collecting blog, or I guess I always try to position myself as like, that guy, that buddy of yours who
sure,
also collects comics and just kind of share some thoughts and maybe tries to offer their opinion on maybe intelligent ways to collect and things like that. So I try to put out a few videos a week and just kind of share collection stuff I have, or talk about the market or what books are moving or trending and things like that. So that's kind of my channel.
Nice. But there's a few certain elements that you kind of do consistently, right?
Yeah. Every Monday, I've kind of gotten to this habit of covering a Go Collect hot list. Go Collect is a YouTube, or excuse me, a comic book pricing sort of guide, as well as it is a blog, and they come out with every week they talk about the largest jump in volume of sales of graded comic books, and I tend to cover that every Monday. So that's something kind of consistent that I do, and I've had some other series that I've done on the channel here and there, but that seems to be the one that is, I would say, like clockwork at this point.
Right on. Did a lot of this stuff just come organically? Like you're like, I need to kind of do something like this, or did you just try and like hit and miss in terms of like what got more exception, what didn't?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the Go Collect one has stuck for the entirety of doing my channel. I think where I kind of saw it was, there's all the various hot lists that come out, like Cover Price, and there's Key Collector has stuff, and Comic Tom covers that, and a lot of people cover the Cover Price one. And when I was starting my YouTube channel, I was regularly following this Go Collect one, and I saw that nobody was talking about it. So I just decided one day, hey, maybe I can just do a video doing commentary on it. And this was very early on in my channel, and that particular video, got like 4 times as many views as whatever I was getting at the time. So it was like, oh, okay, clearly there's an interest in someone talking about, this type of thing. And so it just kind of became like a regular thing where I was like, okay, wow, like people were really looking into this. And then I started to talk offline with the guy who puts it together, and he really started to kind of explain to me like, this is what the list is, and very specifically like how he gets it. So I became very educated on it, and that became like the series that was just sort of a regular thing for me.
That's nice. I think a lot of people tune into a lot of those top 10 shows because, one, they probably don't subscribe to either Go Collect or Cover Price and whatever. They sort of, they rely on people like you to present that. But 2, people like to see, some books that they possibly have like show up on a list, right?
Yeah. I think that's kind of the fun part. I mean, it's one of the things where it's like, the joke I always kind of play with is, it's not so much that, when it shows up on the hot list that you out there should be thinking to buy. This is the time where, hey, maybe I should think to sell my book if you're somebody, who is in that game of it. But it is fun. I think a lot of people, like you said, just I always make the joke where I'm like, hey, I'm going to put a link to the article and you guys can read it, but I know you're not going to read it. Like I myself would prefer not to like have to read into the hot list themselves. I'd love it if someone just broke it down for me, whether that's in comic books or whatever else is going on in the news. We're all looking for the person to do commentary. So I think people appreciate that.
That quick little bite that just sort of like gives them everything they need to know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Is there anything else that's kind of consistent, or is just more of how either the week's going or something that just kind of popped up, or
Yeah, well, so I've tried different series on the channel before. I used to do one that was I called it Key Comic Spotlight, and it would just take a character like Iron Man, and I would talk about 5 comic books that, generally speaking, are books that people who are fans of the character like to collect. So traditionally it would be like his first appearance, like Tales of Suspense 39, and then his first solo series, Iron Man #1, and and then some other cheaper books like, hey, here's when he had the Infinity Gauntlet and stuff. And so you kind of balance that out, and the philosophy behind that was, it felt like there should be a need for people who are on YouTube and they're just thinking to themselves one day, hey, I'm getting into comic book collecting, I really like Daredevil, but I don't know where to start. What are some cool Daredevil comics? And then ideally this would be that sort of content for them. And that was something that I did on the channel pretty regularly for a time. But I think over time, I think it was less something that people enjoy, because I think once you start to do like the top characters, you start to get into like, here's 5 Jubilee books, and I mean, how interesting can they be, at that point? But
and then there's overlap and everything too.
Yeah, there's overlap, right? Correct. So, but it is something that people have said they'd love for me to sort of revisit and try again, and maybe there would be a cool way to do it. But that was a series that I did for some time, and now I'm kind of doing the index type of videos, and I feel like that's a really important kind of monthly thing that I'm trying to do, which is basically just talk about sort of the state of the market and where we are by evaluating the index. And so those are the regular things. And then outside of that, to your other question of just, what's happening that week? Is there an acetate book that needs to be discussed? Is there, did I just get a comic book, and that I'm going to share with you guys or something? So it just sort of depends in that sense.
Or a Black Panther trailer that drops.
Yeah, a Black Panther trailer that causes everyone to buy, Namor books or whatever it is. We can talk about those. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's one of the current videos that you've been doing. I actually would like to chat quickly about before we kind of go back in time. Is that those indexes? Like, I mean, you put a lot of time into creating those. Like, you do one for Silver Age, Bronze, Copper, like it's just there's so much involved in that. What was the motivation to even attempt that?
Yeah, it definitely it's a very front loaded piece of work. Like just to have to build it. Keeping it up month to month actually is pretty easy.
Once you have the framework, yeah.
Correct, yeah. And so I was actually motivated to do it by I had caught wind of a YouTube channel that I watched that talks about sports cards, and it's called Bench Clear Media, and they happen to have done a vintage baseball card index, and they kind of built it in that same way. And I was like, that's such a brilliant idea. We need this for comic books. And so, it's one of those like, I just would love to know the answers. So because I was so curious, I just decided that I would spend the time to do it and put it out there. And I think people really liked it. For me, it just felt like a really good tool, even in the most selfish sense of like, if I can figure this out, then I can really understand the state of the market. And then I can really understand when I'm making my own purchases, like what books or like where the prices should be or where kind of we're headed. So it was just something that I felt like, I was motivated to do it because I just felt like knowing the answer would be really helpful for me and for everyone who watches.
It's definitely half the battle, but I like it because it paints a historical picture for comics. And again, you're right. It's like something way over the top, something, I'm not saying catastrophic, but something really influenced a lot of different markets that caused them to grow abnormally. So everything is kind of settled back down, and I find the information that you've put out, it's pretty interesting how there is still growth, right?
Right.
I mean, considering what everything is happening around, there's still growth, and that can be shown historically, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And it's interesting because who knows like where we're gonna go from here, and maybe it'll go further down than where it was. I think that I'm not so sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna find out, and so that's kind of exciting. But yeah, it really has shown growth. And I think even Ryan, Automatic Comics, who we talk to all the time, he's had his own sort of ways that he's kind of kept his finger on the pulse of the market. And he even mentioned talking about the rate of return. And if you actually do like the compound growth of books, like starting with them as 12-cent issues or whatever, you actually do kind of get to the trend that we're sort of in today. So it is really interesting to see that play out, and kind of where we're going in terms of the index being something measured over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Did you see it going anywhere else other than just like a video on your channel? Like I personally, I see it as like a very useful tool for a lot of people in terms of like getting into the market, and even if you're already in the market. I don't know where it could go. I mean, I have had people reach out to me who I think are much smarter than me and much more savvy than me in terms of being able to like do this kind of complex data and enter it. And people are talking about like, you should code this and that. And then I'm like, I don't know how to code anything. So that's why you get other people to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But there does seem a need, and I don't really know why, companies like Cover Price or even Go Collect or whoever or GPA wouldn't want to invest in this feature themselves. They have all the data, and it feels like they could definitely put it all together. But the thing that I'm putting together, it's not a perfect system. It's just 100 books at 100 grades, and here it is. But it would be really interesting to see if someone could even take more data entry points and somehow even make it more accurate. I think that would be really cool to see. And I don't know, maybe if someone out there is watching that wants to put in this work, we can make it all together.
Get this guy going somewhere. Anyways, you're already going somewhere. Speaking of going somewhere, let's talk about how you kind of got to where you are right now. I know a bit of the story, but part of us sitting down and just chatting is giving the viewers a picture of how you kind of got there. Like, I mean, a lot of people just know that you're one of the pillars of the community. You're a person that a lot of people do turn to for information, for like inspiration, etc. So that journey is interesting to me, and I want other people to kind of know that. And I know a little bit about it, and I know you've shared a little bit of that with the community as well. But if you can maybe expand on it, or
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's specifically just in sort of like, I guess, the YouTube sense, or so the YouTube sense. So my channel was like a few other channels out there, or maybe a lot of channels out there, was sort of a product of like the lockdowns and COVID and kind of everyone being sort of stuck at home.
Right.
That was when my channel kind of, or when I sort of started doing what I did with it. But yeah. Outside of YouTube, I work in the film industry, and when COVID happened, the film productions very much locked down. Found myself with a lot of time on my hands and not knowing what to do with it. And for a time, I had always been interested in YouTube, wanting to do something. I've maybe at one point thought like, hey, maybe I can do like a how to film channel, or talk about writing, or talk about film technique and whatever it is. But that felt like it would be just more work to me. Like it's, I thought it'd be fun to do something that was just specifically that, just fun, outside of my life.
Right.
And so, loves comic books. And, at that time I was watching, Reggie Collects and Comic Tom and Journo's comics and whoever else was kind of going at the time. And I really enjoyed all their stuff. And I said, that seems fun. I'd like to talk about comic books. So I just decided to kind of hit record one day and upload a video. And I think at the time I sort of told myself like, okay, if you do this, you're going to make 30 videos. Like it wasn't like specifically like, oh, I want to make this a real YouTube channel. It was just sort of like, let's just do this. And like, don't just post one video and then never post again. Like just say, hey, I'm going to make 30 videos just to see what happens. And so, over that month and a half or 2 months or however many videos I did, or however much time it took me to make the 30, I started to notice a few people watching and some people coming back, and there a little bit of traction and stuff. And so after I got to 30, it was like video number 31, and I think I woke up that morning thinking like, well, I kind of hit my goal, but now I feel like there's people who are expecting the next video. So I just decided to make another one, and now I'm on this treadmill that never ends.
What was the response? What was the response up to that 30? Like, you mean there must have been some sort of indicator that you're like, okay, people are kind of liking this.
Yeah. I think. Let me see. I can't. So I had all the way back with my channel that exists, like the Swagglehaus. At some point, I've done some video game stuff, like just for fun, like years and years ago. Whatever. You stream on Twitch and then you upload it to your channel.
Sure,
and so there's some stuff on there. And one video I made for a video game thing, got like, I don't know, let's say 10,000 views over the course of it being online for 4 years or 5 years. It had some views. So I think I had like 100 subscribers or something at the time. And then I had made, prior to the comic books, I made one video talking about the MCU and just kind of digging into theories and speculation of where it could go.
Right.
And that video got a lot of views as well. So I guess where I'm going with this to your question is, when I started doing all this comic book content and videos and stuff, I think that there were enough people who had been in my channel or seen stuff or talked about stuff that I had a little bit of an audience. And when I'm talking audience, I'm talking like 40, 50 people, right? Like there's, it was just what, it's still an audience. It was just something where it was like, oh, cool. Like, there's a handful of people that are interested enough to see this. And then I think after a while, I started to kind of get more consistent people commenting. Like I started to recognize certain names that were saying stuff. And so that was kind of interesting too. And maybe, I'm not sure if the Go Collect hot list was in that initial run, but it might have been. And so I think that there were a few videos that I realized like, okay, there is an expectation or not an expectation, but people do enjoy this.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of motivating enough for me to keep going, I think.
That's definitely motivation. And how many, like, was this at the beginning of the lockdown, or was this during the lockdown?
It was, so I think towards the middle end, I think in October of 2020, so 2 years ago at this point right now. So about 2 years ago, I guess we would have been in lockdown for like 6 months or so at that point, or 7 months, whatever it was. So kind of that middle of lockdown, realizing that I don't know what to do with myself.
Right. I think one of the themes that I'm noticing, and I get to sit down with some awesome people and just chat, is the same thing. Is we were in a situation and we had nothing to do, and we had a few books, we collected a little bit, and we're like, oh, there's a community out there that actually talks about this. And the same thing with me.
Yeah.
You see
totally.
the Reggie, you see the Comic Tom, you're like, oh, there's people talking about this and hanging out and chatting. So in that digging, a lot of people have that same common thread. Do you think we would be where we are if it not gone through that process?
That's a good question. It's hard to say, I mean, because we're in it. So
right.
On the one hand, I feel like, oh yeah, like it's completely exploded because there's so many more channels now, and there's so many people doing interesting stuff and talking about things. But on the other hand, like even before lockdown, I think even all the way back in 2018, 2018 is when I got back into comics, like as an adult, and like even then I think I was watching Comic Tom videos and things like that, So I feel like maybe the community existed, but if anything, it feels like maybe it's been more galvanized, at least in that sense. But also it has to have, right? It has to have exploded. I mean, comic books have exploded like a lot of collectibles, so there's got to be a lot of new people, new collectors, new interest, and all this that is a result of all that. So I guess so.
I think there's a lot of creativity that not just in, because I think of all this that we do, that you do is a creative process. I started it because I needed a creative outlet. I was like, I need something to do to appease that in my head, because I kind of have to do that. And I was like, comics make me happy, so it's kind of the same thing. It's not work per se. It's just, it's a joy. I like making videos. I like the editing process. I like coming up with different ideas, and I like collecting. So it just kind of made sense. But a lot of other industries, the same thing kind of happened, where everybody used it as a creative outlet, which I found super interesting.
Yeah, I think that is pretty accurate. I mean, and yeah, I would say it is a creative outlet for me in a sense. I mean, I work in a creative space,
right?
And so I do have creative outlet in that way, but there is a big difference in like a creative outlet that is totally autonomous to like what 100%. I want to do, and even just like in my humor and personality. I mean, the people who watch my YouTube probably know me better than my friends. You know what I mean? Like, this is like unfiltered, pure nerd passion, Mickey, that you're getting, and the humor and the jokes and stuff. So it's a creative outlet in that sense, where it's like, it just truly is like just my love and my passion and going into it. And it's not, I don't do the craziest editing or anything. A lot of it is just vlog to camera, but sometimes doing jokes or just the performative aspect of it is definitely creative in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. You're great at it. I think some people are and some people aren't, which is it's what kind of makes a channel. And I think that is definitely one of the drawing factors too, because you, at some point, it exploded, right? Like, you have to admit, the channel it's pretty big now. There's a ton of followers. What point did that take place, or was that immediate, or was that like a growing process? Or
that's a good question. It feels like you kind of, at least for me in my experience, like it has hit different checkpoints where it's like you get an initial bump, and then something else happens, you get another initial bump. I'd say the two biggest growth periods I felt were, so back in early 2021, one video I made was about Marvel trading cards, and I know you like Marvel trading cards. You're a fan of that, so yeah.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Yes, but Marvel trading cards, and I think I was one of the first people to kind of talk about it.
Right.
At least in the YouTube space. I mean, shout out to Neo Cards and Comics too, who's another
100%.
Ours. He also was talking about it, and that's actually where I kind of discovered his channel and all the great stuff he does. But but the video I had done it really, really exploded. And I think at the time, I mean, maybe I was at 1,000 subscribers, which, is still a lot, depending on what proportional levels you're thinking. But at that time when I made that video, I think Gem Ming Collectibles had seen it, and he shouted me out, and he shared, and he put it in his video when he did it. And that elevated a lot of attention to my channel. I think it did. But whether it was a combination of him doing a shout out or that video itself, that felt like it got a lot more traction for sure. And then I think in doing just a lot of con stuff, I think that's helped a lot. Like just going to shows and talking to dealers and showing con footage, floor footage, stuff like that. I mean, that's stuff that people, it's really fun to watch that stuff. So I think that those have been the biggest elevations to the subscriber counts of my channel.
I think people turn to you because when I say you make, it's going to sound really, you make intelligent content. Like you make content that is informative, that people kind of, when they do watch it, they're like, okay, this makes sense. This is giving me tools. This is giving me information to make a proper decision, rather than like, you need to buy this book. This is the hot book. This is the hot stuff. Like, I mean, I see that as not an opposite, but just like something completely different that people are attracted to. I don't know if they necessarily know that that's the case, but I feel that that's the reason. What do you think that people turn to you for the information, or do you think people just turn to you like, what's the next hot book, or should I buy or sell? Or
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I thank you for saying that, because I definitely, I'm still always trying to figure out like what I offer people, right?
Sure.
But I think even in the beginning, I think I mentioned like whether this comes across or not, I'm trying to, I guess I'm always trying to position myself as like, a friend who can offer you some insight or thoughts on comic books, because there's a lot of great channels out there that do awesome stuff who are like comic book dealers, right? And so I can't give you guys the dopamine hit of like unboxing, $10,000 books. I can't do that. So I have to offer some other insights and stuff. So I do think a lot about like, okay, let me speak to things in the most intelligent way I can without necessarily just saying go buy this stuff. Just trying to arm people with thought process, giving people thought processes to at least how I've navigated stuff. And even whenever I buy a book and I show a book, it's very rare that the topic of the video is going to be, hey guys, here's my new thing. Right. It's really more like, here's my new thing. And when I got it, this is what I was thinking about. And actually, let's talk about this thing. Right. Because that's the thing I think is more helpful. Because on the one hand, it's like, cool, Mickey, you got Avengers 1. That's awesome. But like, the other thing is the thing I think is helpful. And it's not to say that I know everything. It's just sort of like, well, let me just walk you through my thought process. And maybe that's going to help you guys think about whatever purchases you make. And so hopefully that's why people come to my channel, is that they can, just have another voice of from a collector perspective of like, okay, I'm thinking about doing this, and this is what Mickey went through, and that makes sense to me, so hopefully that's kind of what I offer people.
Yeah, that connection I think is super important. I completely agree with you in terms of like, this is one thing I do appreciate is like, you're doing your unboxing, you have the hot book, whatever, but I enjoy and I try and do it. It's not that easy, but the process to get you there, why you got there, what's the reason for it, and then maybe what's the future for that, or like the other elements that are attached to that book, because there's so many different things rather than than just the book, right?
There's so many.
That's just kind of boring. It's just like, there it is.
Yeah, and it doesn't give the viewer value. All it does is like, I don't want, like, I like it, like if I get a book and I have an unboxing video and someone comments, I mean, I appreciate it, but if someone comments like, congrats Mickey or whatever, I'm like, oh man, I wish, I like the comments where it's like people are talking about the thing that I try to talk about after the fact, because yeah, there's so much to it, and it's really a difficult thing to navigate. I mean, shout out to our friend Newbie, who, you know, might be able to pick up a huge book, but I mean, we have so many conversations just about the one process to get one thing, you know, and each of those conversations is its own topic of discussion or video or whatever, because it's, you know, it's expensive and it's difficult to navigate, especially if you're just starting out or getting back into things. And so, yeah, I always try to think about like a unique, intelligent way to talk about the experience, because that's the stuff I think is going to be the most helpful for people.
I want to go back into one of those points. It started when you mentioned the shout out that Gem Mint had done, right? And I think and then drawing upon other friends of the community, I think is super important. Whether you're doing a collaboration, whether someone's supporting you in that way and giving you a shout out, or whether you're coming together to answer a question, whether you guys are making creative content itself, I enjoy that synergy that kind of happens. Whether it's just a chat that's happening, questions again that are being answered, or new things that are being created. I just, it's one of the things I really enjoy about this space, and it seems very organic in nature, right? Yeah. For the most part.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is. It's just, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's hard to navigate, so you need friends. Insights from everyone and friends, and then kind of what we were talking about too, where it's like, I can't ask my friends in real life. They don't know anything about any of this stuff. Like, and you have that community aspect, because, you know, it's a very specific passion that we all have for collecting comic books. So, you know, and it's cool. It's nice. It's a lot of fun. And I think, like you said, that community is kind of formed, and those friendships are formed.
Yeah, I'm not texting, you know, my buddy who I ride with, should I pick up this Tomb of Dracula 1 when I'm on? Because he's going to be like, dude, I don't care. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it really is cool to see it form in that sense, and to get to know people and to have those conversations. And I was being somewhat facetious, but like not really. I mean, this is, you know, these types of things are the most fun part of the hobby, you know? Yeah. I also think that in time, there's certain channels, certain people that kind of gravitate towards each other that maybe like-minded is, you know, maybe it's not the best word, but just like or collect similar books, or into similar things within the community, create in a similar way. I find that fascinating as well.
Yeah, that is an interesting part of it, but I think you're right. I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people, you know, you've been able to have on this channel, and we talk all the time, and people like Ryan and Drew, you know, Como and Newbie. And we all have very similar, you know, we're all different. Like Drew and Ryan, I think sell a lot more, and well, actually, you sell a lot now too, because you have your big collection. You got to get
sell small stuff, but they sell some pretty big stuff. Yeah.
Right. But we all sort of dabble in that space, and maybe more on the side of still kind of collectors, passionate collectors, and so we have those similar interests in that sense.
Yeah, but we do it for a reason. Like, I mean, I think all of us, you know, if we're talking about selling, it's just to fuel something else, to get into that next book, to get into the, you know, something a bit bigger, right? We all share that sort of ideology, right?
Yeah, I think that definitely seems true, for sure.
Yeah, we're not, you know, taking that money and then investing it into something completely. We may be, but it seems like it's going back into books.
Yeah, or like it's like, it definitely feels like we are at best, I'd say some people are part-time dealers. You know, it's not their full-time thing. Yeah. And it's really like, if you can make a little little money in your pocket, little income, but more importantly, if you can eventually wind up with books that you feel like are assets that you get to hold on to,
Right. That's actually a really good question. So what I kind of wanted to get into is we don't usually chat about your favorite book or your favorite character, because we already know who that is. We don't need to know that. But the whole idea about what the collection looks like for yourself, like whether it's now, whether it's in the future, like is it something, and I ask this of other people that I've interviewed, it's like, is it something large? Is it just like, is it runs? Is it, what are you after in terms of like having books? Like I know you have your collection behind you, but I know that at any given point in time, most of those can move to something else.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's a little bit like, I always talk about Marie Kondo, where it's
right.
Like,
sure,
you gotta, every book to me has to sort of spark joy in that sense, where, and things change. Sometimes you love stuff, and then sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm okay, like to move this on. So it's a little bit of a revolving door all the time. But it is a kind of a good question. Like for me personally, like I don't want to have so many comic books that I feel overwhelmed owning. And it's one of the reasons why I haven't totally dove into purchasing collections. I had you on the channel. We talked about that experience, and I think it's like, there's no denying this is probably the best way to get the best sort of value of books that you might be able to pull out for yourself in the collection.
Sure.
But as I'm sure you can speak to, it's a lot of work. It's a lot to manage.
100%.
So it's like, I at least for me right now, I think with my collection, I don't think I can go that route. But somebody did say, I was at a show a few weeks back, I think at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was having a conversation with somebody, and he was like, I mean, where it's going, like obviously, especially with doing YouTube, and you're going to keep doing this, you're going to keep buying and trading and flipping and selling or whatever, and eventually it's going to get to a point where it's like, well, now you have an AF-15, or now you have Action Comics 1. What are you going to do with it? Like now you have to really figure this out. It's like, and that was very true. I was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, there has to be has to be a point where, okay, where does this go from here? Who inherits this stuff? I mean, is someone going to inherit it? Is it just going to show up at the LCS, when I pass? Yeah,
we're having it for a brief moment in time, right? Eventually, it's going to be going somewhere. We're not here forever, so
What about? I mean, where are you at? I mean, even just with the collection that you purchased, are you still, just, I know that every now and again you're selling things and things like that, but like, are you ready to pick up the next collection and build on that, or how are you feeling about that?
I'm pretty much done processing the last one. It took 6 or so months. Everything's all sorted. Some stuff is sold, some is getting graded, etc. I'm definitely ready to move into, I bought a couple small collections in the past few months, but I'm definitely ready to get into another one again. It's very addictive. Extremely addictive.
I can see that, actually. I mean, it is a lot of fun. It is a ton of fun to do that stuff and find things. The hunt is great, and being able to acquire keys for a really reasonable price and then sell the others. That is definitely fun. And I won't rule it out. I'm just afraid to have too many boxes. It's going to overwhelm me.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, that can always be managed. Like with anything. Like we chat with other friends. Whatever obstacle is in your way, it can always be sort of managed. Like there's always a way to deal with it. But yeah, like I would, if anybody were to ask me, I would say, like, for sure, if you have the opportunities if it's within your means. Like I'm not saying like you should leverage a house or anything to get it, because sometimes like some of the collections they're not just cheap. Like you're not just buying cents on the book. We're talking like thousands and thousands of dollars for some collections. So it just depends what your goal is, but it can be a good thing as a vehicle to get you into what you want, right?
Yeah, that's true. And look, I haven't had the collection like you had kind of get into my purview. So things might change for me if that showed up at my door. I might change my tune a little bit.
It would be so. I'd be honest with you, because when that opportunity presented, he's like, dude. Somebody had said to me, he's like, dude, if you say no, it's always going to be in the back of your head. What's in those boxes?
right.
It's like just like, and I'm like, okay, can't let that go by. So it's it was just that thing, right? So, talking about some of the collection, the books you have, has the channel influenced how you collect along the years? Like, is it like, I mean, I know how you process the information about like what's happening in the market, so on and so forth. It must have changed your course at some point, or at multiple points.
Maybe a little bit. I mean, like, I think if anything, say we were talking about the index earlier. I mean, the index just sort of now informs me of like, is this a good price? Am I going to buy this? No, I'm going to pass on this. Like those types of things. Right. But as far as like books that I specifically want or specifically target, that I wouldn't say has changed. Now, our interests change over time, but I wouldn't say that the channel has specifically affected that in any way.
Okay. I just for me, in terms of characters, it really hasn't changed how or who I'm chasing after, but it's definitely changed how I'm collecting, if that makes sense. But I think that's not so much the channel, that's more of everybody else that I'm kind of learning from. Because I'm like, that works for me, that is what I don't want, that definitely works for me, right? So it kind of, all this stuff is very still new to me. Like, I mean, just like you, I got back into it, a few years ago. You got back into it, a few years before that. Like a lot of people, the lockdown was the impetus to get back into collecting. So it's still new to me. So I will always be constantly changing in how I'm acquiring or collecting books.
Yeah. I'm similar in that sense. And I guess I shouldn't say, like you said, maybe not specifically the channel, but having conversations with people, definitely. I learn, absolutely. I learn so much from everybody. And there are factors now that I think about, which maybe I didn't think about before, where I do think about, there are certain so I've made a video on my channel one time where I was talking about getting in the neighborhood, right, with certain books. And I do think I still believe in that for sure, but I would maybe plus that a little bit with now where we're going. I think that there are requisites to getting in the neighborhood that you still want to be at, and these are just little things that I continue to learn on and stuff. And more specifically, if people are watching, it's like just knowing. I think certain grades, depending on years and stuff, you probably want to be above, because grades below that can be very expendable in the market. And so if you want to maintain like certain floor values for books that you purchase, you probably need to hit a certain checkpoint and things like that. So I think about that stuff a lot more.
Right. But it's also a good point for and I'm sure people have definitely learned this from your channels, like in terms of entry points. Like, I mean, and I've learned this as well, is like, you're right, there's certain grades which you should definitely consider, but there's certain things, like if it's presented to you and you're like, it's the opportunity and I can get in here and I can use that as the floor to move up, like it's such a good way to eventually, because these are slow processes. Stuff doesn't happen overnight.
Totally. And I think entry point and opportunity is literally the number one factor, just because a good deal is a good deal. We talk a lot about this stuff on the channel, and people have made comments of like, oh, the market is still going down, like or whatever, and things like that. And it's like, that might all be true, but that's not to say that today on Instagram you're not going to see the deal of the year. You might still see that deal, and that's what's so interesting about comic books, is like a good deal is a good deal. It's not stocks that's like an even price, that whatever the daily price is, that's the daily price. I mean, it does go up and down in that sense, but just because that's the fair market value today doesn't mean you can find the book. And so that's where it's still really interesting to think about it in that sense, and what makes comic books so interesting to me. Yeah. So.
But there's also there's a generally a person behind that book that you're interested in, right? That person needs. I'm just, everybody's situation is completely different. So
yes,
that can dictate whatever the price can be. It can be like, dude, that book's never gonna go for that. Well, it's just the book. That's how much I want for it. And then it'd be like, dude, you're selling for that much? Like,
yeah,
right. So that's a factor as well, and you have to consider that.
People have their own prices,
right.
And it doesn't matter what GPA says. This is this person's price,
Right, and you'll have situations like that, and you can get into a book that you probably would never be able to. You'd be like, dude, that's an amazing price. So
right.
I keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
And also when you're dealing with people, like there's a bit of negotiation as well in terms of like, let's work on this, and you're not going to be able to do that with when you're buying stocks. Like, hey, can we let's work on this price right now?
Take 150 off the top.
Would you? Yeah. Would you take my my Ghost Rider 1 and you chop a little off and then?
Yeah, let me trade you half a Disney stock for your Apple here, and I'll pay the cash and the rest. Yeah.
Yeah, and then do you take Zemo or PayPal or whatever?
Right.
We're veering a little off course, so we've got this picture of where Swagglehaus is now. We have a picture of where the channel came from, evolved from. At this point, I usually like to take a bit of time and ask you, like, let's look in the future. Let's look a few years down the road, like, not the collection, but what the channel is going to look like. Is it going to keep evolving? Is it going to keep kind of doing the same thing? Is there any bigger plans that you have for it? It's a good question, because there is a point where I wouldn't say that it's every single waking hour of my life, but as it's grown and as I treat it more seriously, I do put in more effort, and it does take more time. Right. And so it does hit this point of like, okay, well, Mickey, like, where do you want to go with this? Like, what is this channel? Like, maybe it's all well and good that Swagglehaus just continues kind of the course, and maybe I sell a T-shirt here or there, and that sort of thing. I really need to make T-shirts. But the question really is like, okay, well, but like, where can this grow? Like, what do I want to do with it? Ultimately, how is it going to be beneficial to people who still watch it, but also like help whatever it is that I want to do? And there are some things that I thought about, and I don't have all the answers right now. But I do have ideas, and I've thought a lot about them. Not specifically stuff I can talk about now, but I am in the creative space, and I am a writer, and I've written some things. Okay.
Let me just say, I'll just say that. Sure. I've written some things, and so there might be opportunities in the future where I can say, hey guys, I've wrote some things. I've never asked for you guys for anything ever, and if you want to help support the thing I wrote, maybe you can help me out. Right, and so that could be maybe where it goes from here. But even outside of that, as far as the content of the channel, I think the content of this channel will stay the same. Okay. I have had interest in wanting to, like, I work in film. I like to talk about movies. Like, I'd love to just do She-Hulk reviews, or talk about She-Hulk, or talk about Black Panther, and do more of that stuff. But also, like, I don't necessarily feel like the channel that I have, like, people might be curious, like, hey Mickey, what do you think of She-Hulk? But like, that's not what the channel is. Like, it's not my job to tell you if I like something or don't like something. But I've had interest in being like, okay, maybe I can do like a more of a podcast type of show that's Swagglehaus, but dives a little bit more into other media that is still in the space that we're interested in, but a little bit different. So I've thought about those things as well.
Interesting. So I mean, at some point you'd like, well, not some point, but I mean, again, the channel is growing exponentially, so it's becoming more and more how do I say this, pervasive. It's becoming more and more in the space of the community. So I was just interested, like, knowing that it sounds like it's more of an organic thing. Just let it kind of keep going, do the things that I'm doing, and just letting those people just kind of consume the stuff that I'm doing now. So
yeah, and I think that avenue of the channel will always stay the same for me. But like I just think about like other maybe where else I could build this out or do other interesting things. But I mean, as far as I can tell, I'm going to continue to buy comic books, and I'm going to continue to need to share them with people. So I think that specific lane of content will always be around.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of people do appreciate the channel and the effort that you do, and it's some of the work that you do is it's very. I just want you to know, from my standpoint, it's very much appreciated because there's a lot of great information there that a ton of people can use. And I'll definitely put some links below to the channel. If there's any specific show that you want to highlight, then I'll definitely do that. But I don't want to keep you forever. What we usually do is after we kind of talk about past, present, and future. I don't know if you've ever seen inside the actor studio. I'm sure you have.
I have,
so
yeah.
James Lipson does the questions at the end from Vera Pivot. I do the exact same thing. If you would indulge me, I would love to ask you some questions.
Sure. Yeah, I love it.
Some people answer fairly quickly. Some people, I know probably already know the questions because you've seen the show a few times. But
yeah, I knew this part was coming, and I'm a big fan of Inside the Actor Studio.
Oh,
so
okay.
I will fawn a little bit of and pretend like I don't have the answer right away.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, guys. So we have a series of questions here again from Inside the Actor Studio. First one is, what's your favorite word?
So YouTube favorite word has to be significance, right? I think that
Okay.
has inadvertently become a catchphrase
Sure.
of mine on the channel. But my real answer would probably be, I think, just yes.
Okay.
I think yes. I like hearing yes in life.
Sure.
No matter what it is, right? Whether it's in work or in just your personal life. I mean, yes is always a good thing, and I think yes is a good way to describe any kind of euphoria you have.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
Yes.
Yes. Will you make this deal? Yes.
Yes.
Will you
Yeah.
take this offer? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Claim. Yes.
Yes.
Sold. Yes.
It's yours. Yes.
Yes. So yes is my favorite word.
Perfect. So knowing that, what is your least favorite word?
Similar in the opposite of yes, not no, but I would say can't.
Okay. Yeah.
is my least favorite word. I can't do that. No, it's not possible. We can't do that. It's not possible. Those types of things. I've heard that a lot in my
Okay.
work life.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with it a lot. But I don't like it. I don't like knowing that we can't do it.
I know. I'm the same way. I'm very headstrong sometimes. I'm like, we'll get back to that. We'll make that happen.
Yeah. There's always a way.
There's always a way, right?
Yeah, you just it's not can't, just
100%.
adjust,
100%.
Swarm around it.
You may have to go off to a couple different angles. You're going to get there eventually.
Yeah, totally.
Right? All right. Again, not literal, but what turns you on?
I think like enthusiasm or like passion
Okay.
turns me on. Like just I need it. I need a lot of it in my life. Like I do this in front of the camera every now and again, but like sometimes in my life I need other people to help when I'm feeling like I need other people to lift me up. So I really appreciate whatever it is, in life, or like just the general enthusiasm for whatever it is we're doing. We could be eating somewhere at a restaurant and you just somebody's just like, oh, this food is so good, just that type of just it makes me excited or whatever. I think that really gives me a boost, and so I really like being around that. So that turns me on.
Cool. Well, obviously this is coming. What turns you off?
This one I think is for sure. Just I think negativity. I think just whatever it is, if it's negativity in a hateful way, or if it's just negativity, bad attitude. and I think it's okay. I think it's all okay that we have like our down days and stuff, but I think swimming in the negativity is not a good thing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like when other people try and intentionally try and bring something else down, it's so disheartening for me.
Yeah, it is.
And you see it and you're just like, oh, I can't look at that.
Yeah. And I get it. I mean, look, we all have our days, but I just think if you live in it too long, it just is really not healthy.
It's toxic.
Yeah.
All right. This has been, in terms of what the answer is, people always kind of say the exact same thing. It's weird. But what sound or noise, the question after this. What sound or noise do you love?
It's very specific.
Okay.
So I have a dog. I'm a dog owner. And I just like hearing my dog, if she just like gets, like maybe I'm in here and he's here in the other room and maybe she gets up from bed and I just hear her shake, or I hear her like nails just click, 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 clack on the ground.
Okay.
Just knowing that she's there,
Okay.
it just, I don't know. It makes me, it brings me joy,
What kind of dog do you have? We actually don't know.
She's a pit bull Weimaraner mix.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so medium size, like maybe 50 pounds. But yeah, she just those little details. I don't know, bring some life into the house. I like
and that. Do we have a name for her?
Her name is Dev.
Dev?
Yeah, Dev.
Who is she named after?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't name her. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, this is the answer that most people have something in common. So, what sound or noise do you hate?
My alarm clock.
Oh, okay. That's completely different.
Yeah, my alarm. What's the noise that people always say?
The scraping of metal or fingers on the chalkboard, scraping of something being dragged.
No, I think that, well, yeah, those are all unpleasant sounds for sure. But I think my alarm clock, like, obviously I use it all the time, but like it gives me like PTSD. Like sometimes when I've had to like wake up at 4 a.m. for whatever, right? Yeah. Make an airplane, get to the airport or whatever. Just, I don't know, that feeling. Ugh, I hate that.
Well, like in terms of time constraint, kind of the same. If you know you're under a certain time constraint, it's like, okay. I like to know that it can just be. I'm usually on time. I'm not that kind of person who's late, but I like to organize my time in my own way. Yeah.
Like maybe it's like alarm clock plus the feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm late, or like, oh, I gotta go, or here,
right.
So it's a kind of, maybe it's a little bit of a cheat because I'm baking in the feeling to the sound as well.
Yeah, you're like, I'm gonna feel anxious about trying to get somewhere really quickly.
Yeah.
All right. This I definitely want to know. I think I know what it is, but let everybody else know. What is your favorite curse word?
Well, I mean, I think fuck is the one.
Sure.
You can't not pick fuck. It's too versatile. It can be used with humor. It could be used with anger.
Yep.
It's all around word. I don't know if that's the one you thought I was going to say, but
yeah,
you got to go with that. Yeah.
It gets right to the point. It can show enthusiasm. It can show disdain. It can it can be used in so many different ways. It's a lot of people. That's her go-to. This is gonna be interesting. What profession other than your own, what would you like to attempt?
I don't know if this is like a specific profession. Like I don't have like the job title, but so I work in film,
right?
And at other departments, every now and again, like I've worked with some vendors who like they'll build sets, or even more specifically, like you can get carpenters who build like whatever cool thing. We need to build the Iron Man suit, Right. So I've been to these warehouses where they make like the craziest props and stuff like that. And so maybe it doesn't have to be total movie slant, but I think working in that space, like the craftsmen, who design that stuff and build that stuff, I think that's just so cool. And I'm not very handy. Like I definitely am not.
Oh no?
No, sadly. I mean, it's but I think it's so cool. Like just the painting of it, the craftsmanship, the work, that sort of artistry. So yeah, I would say that, but I have no skills in that department, but that would be an interesting profession.
I figure you would have walked around, the house with your tool belts and
oh man,
tools hanging out. And
no.
What's to fix next? No.
I think I wish. I think it would give me some more manly points, but yeah. Sadly, I have to own up to the fact that I'm not the best builder of houses.
Okay. Back just while we're kind of talking about the sort of art department, I used to have a motorcycle shop many years ago, and we actually got a contract a few times to build like the title car, whatever. Like if it wasn't anything glorious, but like a Batmobile type car. Or
that's awesome.
Elliptic. So we built a few of those back in the day. I think we built a truck, like off an old fire truck, but it turned out to be like a Mad Max kind of thing. It was fun.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, like I think just that, like anytime you get to build something, especially in a creative sense.
Yeah,
I think that is so cool.
And then it gets to be used, and you're like, okay, it's going to be immortalized forever.
Yeah,
it was not really good. It's there,
but it works. Got what you needed done.
It got on film.
Yeah,
it's there. Yeah,
so cool.
It was
so
definitely
awesome.
It was definitely a lot of fun. Okay, last question. If heaven exists, what would you like God to say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Your friends and family are over here, and they got the party going. That would be awesome.
Saddle up to the bar.
Yeah. See everybody. They're waiting for you. Whatever it is, something to that phrasing for sure.
That's awesome. You survived.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, man. It was great fun. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. Is there, before we end, is there anything you wanted to plug, say, or anything about Swagglehaus?
No, I just I appreciate you inviting me on the channel. If you don't know my YouTube, you can check it out. Just YouTube Swagglehaus. Go check it out if you like to hear me talk about comic books and stuff. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all the effort that you put into this show. I've really enjoyed watching it, so it's been great to get to see other people beyond this, and it was great fun.
It's good. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm sure everybody's gonna love to know a little bit more about Swagglehaus outside of everything else that you see in terms of collecting and your books and whatnot. It's just it's nice to paint a different kind of picture. So I appreciate you sitting down with me. Everybody, I hope has a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care. Cheers.
Thank you.